If you're having anxiety about the economy or your own cash flow, you are going to love this podcast because I'm going to share 7 messages from the energy of the economy. Hi there, welcome to another episode of Soul Led Living. I am your host, Nikki Novo, and I read the energy of all things. And today, the economy is on the table. I have to give you a little bit of a backstory on this one because this came out of my own sacred anger. I don't know if you guys remember, but in the predictions episode that was for April, I think the first message was all about this like sacred fire that was going to come forward. Guys, and no joke, the next day, these crazy fires started roaming all around about like 10 minutes from my house. So I was like, oh my gosh, these are the sacred fires. But I was talking about like just kind of sharing things or doing things out of a little bit of like being frustrated and angry about it and just moving because of that fire. And this episode is definitely a result of that. We've been hearing all these things about tariffs and the economy and the stock market and all that. And there's all these people on Instagram, I feel like, giving me all this advice and scary advice and just all this fear going on. And it made me really angry. I think it comes from, honestly, like my upbringing a little bit. Like I just remember being a little kid or just even being like a teenager and realizing that money controlled so much of your life and like your freedom, And I mean, that's why I got a job really young in high school. I mean, I was working as a sophomore in high school because sure, my parents had like, some money, but they were controlling it at the end of the day. Like if I wanted it for something, I wanted to buy a beeper and my mom was like, absolutely not. Your dad is a doctor and he has a beeper, but you do not need a beeper. I was like, no, you don't understand. I do need a beeper. I need to send my crush these codes so that he like knows that I like him. She was very much against it. So I was like, I need a job. Like I need my own money. And I really found freedom connected to money. I just thought that like, okay, like in order to have some freedom, you have to have your own money. That was something that I learned really early on. So as I've been hearing these scary messages about the economy, it pisses me off because I feel like those of us who are listening to this episode, we are trying to live true to our soul. We're really trying to trust ourselves and make really brave moves. And sometimes that means making money in the way that we feel called to. And that might be very different than what is safe or, what is, dependable or whatever. So as we're trying to live this brave life, there's these messages about this like major economy that I feel is trying to control us and not letting us really move towards life in the way that we want to. So I was like, enough. I can't with this shit. So I was like, I'm going to make an episode about really what the economy is trying to say, because what I love about reading energy and using my intuition is knowing that nothing is ever black and white, right? Like I've told you a million times, I could read somebody and the message might be like, you absolutely need to work things out with your husband. I can read the next person and the message can be like, you absolutely need to leave your husband, right? It's never black and white. There is not a good and a bad. So if the economy is showing signs that look like bad, that doesn't mean that that's necessarily what it is. We really have to feel into it and understand what we are feeling this is trying to say to us rather than listening to what other people are trying to tell us that this is what this is, that this is what this is trying to say. So that is my little spiel. I'm going to come with a little bit of anger, but I promise like once I get into the messages, I won't be there. But I do not want these messages that are going around on the news, on social, to scare you and keep you from doing what you are being called to do right now. Before we get into the messages, the first thing I needed to ask was, hey, what are you? I was like, hey, economy, like what are you really? And I got a really interesting answer. First of all, I felt this really funny vibe. It's definitely a guy vibe. The economy is pretty masculine, but like smart masculine, not like rough and tough masculine, like almost like tall, skinny suit guy masculine is kind of what I was feeling. And what was interesting is that the economy was saying, I am both something that has a task, like that has like a skill, almost like a celebrity, right? Like they're an actor, let's say, they have a skill, but at the same time, they have to be in front of camera. So the economy was saying like there's these two aspects of me where I'm very technical, but at the same time, I'm very message oriented and I have to be in front of the camera almost like I'm constantly messaging. And there's a big aspect of me that is about speaking, communicating, and messaging. And then there's a big aspect of me of technique and tactics and the actual things that I do. I thought that was so fascinating. Almost like a politician, but who is legit. That's kind of the vibe of the economy. And then it gave me one phrase. It said, I am the flow of money throughout the world. That's really what I am. I am the traffic jams that happen. I am the clear roads that happen. I am the happy roads that happen, but I am the flow of money throughout the world. So I was kind of thinking, he was like, we don't want traffic jams, right? Like a traffic jam can be when people are scared and they're holding their money, right? So like the money is not flowing, it's not going out because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid, I don't want to use this. And then also we see like a lot of people on the road sometimes where like money is like really flowing and very much moving. Also sometimes money is like caught up in different corners. Like I was thinking that there's this festival that happens in Miami every year, and it's in this one part of town called Coral Gables. And whenever that festival is going on, all this traffic, ends up around Coral Gables. Or even if there's like a big baseball field and in University of Miami, a big baseball game in the University of Miami, there's all this traffic that ends up in this one space. And the economy was saying like there are things that will get, kind of magnetize money in a certain corner, and then we'll see like a lot of money held up in one area and not necessarily flowing in other areas. So that can also look like when we talk about, the 1%, like these 1% have learned, whether it's through generations or like through an invention, how to magnetize money in one area. And that can seem like a traffic jam, but only in like one spot, but it's not necessarily always causing like a super good flow. So the economy is like, at the end of the day, we want like that perfect flow of traffic where like the traffic lights are working, and sure there's some stop and go, but like everybody's going by the rules, they're stopping when they see a stop sign, things are moving, there's not too many cars, but there's not no cars, there is a flow of just traffic that's moving. And he was saying like, that's what I am at the end of the day. So after I got a little bit of a feel, I was like, okay, I'm ready for my messages. And the first message kind of follows up on that explanation. So he said, yes, I am the flow of money, but something that people don't understand is that money itself is an energy and it's a frequency. And I think that's also why he was saying it's like almost like I am both physical, but I'm both physical, but I'm also like emotional in a way, or I'm also energetic at the same time. So what we tend to miss about the economy is that money itself is an energy, and depending on how people feel about money, causes the flow to work or traffic or things like that to happen. So we have to, when we think about the economy, we also have to understand that this is like people's thoughts and feelings and just kind of like their overall frequency around money. And that's actually what moves money as well. So I was like, well, what moves money? And it was really like these magnets move money. So a magnet is, again, it could be an emotion. It could be something cool that's happening. So like I said, I'm scared. Something is, happening in my area. So like, let's not use money, right? So, and obviously I'm talking about the global economy, but all of us have very small economies, bigger economies, that kind of stuff. I'm thinking about my local economy. So we live right outside of Asheville, and Asheville in October had a really bad flood. And Asheville, one of its biggest seasons is fall because it's so beautiful here and people come to travel. During that, the flood happened, destroyed everything. So there was no people that wanted to come. There was a ton of bad videos, being shared on Instagram and on social. So of course, people that are, were thinking about coming are like, oh my gosh, I'm not coming. Maybe we even see that in California in the Palisades, right? With the fires and stuff. So that is obviously like people's group emotions about an area, so about this economy, like this local economy. And then the people that live there are freaking out because they're like, they know nobody's going to come and spend their money. So they are therefore holding their money. So the economy just slows down in that area. And obviously that can happen on a bigger way. But what's funny, I was getting this vision again of like a concert, and what's funny is that they were saying like, because it is our emotions, like the flow of money and the energy of money, but it's also there are these things or people or just like events that magnetize money. And of course, that's like what we all want to be. And I have an example of that. So with Asheville having like such a bad few months because of the flood, all of a sudden this artist, I don't know if you guys have heard of him, Billy Strings. He's like kind of I don't know, I feel like he's like the modern day like Grateful Dead. And he comes to Asheville. I don't know if he had planned to come there or he was like, oh, like, let me help out the economy. I'm not sure. But the point is that he came for 2 days, sold 2 days worth of concerts, sold out. And in those 2 days, he brought $2 million to Asheville, to the Asheville economy, which was like amazing. People were dying for something. So, that means people were going to restaurants, they were staying at hotels, like all this just to see this guy perform. So that is like, if you want to think about like the flow of money and money being an energy, this concert, so think about the stage, right? Like, is that guy is magnetizing people to him and everybody's stopping to see this guy, in concert on stage, but it also magnetizes money like a magnet to an area. And it'll kind of like, it'll like really cause this overflow. Sometimes it'll cause like a traffic jam. Like if it's more emotional, I don't want to spend it, but it can also create this flow. So it's like interesting how this one person changed the economy of a place that was like really tied up. Does that make sense? So that's what the economy was saying, is like, I'm also an emotion, like I'm also an energy, and there's things that we do as humans and the ways that we think that actually like move money around. Like our thoughts basically are the magnets that move money around in the world. So the reason that this guy magnetized, I mean, he himself is magnetic, right? But what happens is there's a certain group of people that are like, oh my God, Billy Strings, like he is so cool. I need to go see him. And we all start telling each other something and we move towards that concert and we bring our money with us. So it's actually like a thought. Even if I maybe never heard his song, there's some sort of momentum around that guy. We all know what it felt like to have a Taylor Swift concert near you. Like you don't even like care about her too much, but like so many people want to go there. Like, oh, whatever. If somebody invites me, I'll go, Sorry, Swifties. I know that that's insulting, but that's how I feel about Taylor Swift. Like we basically, our thoughts magnetize money and move. So I always kind of picture like a marble and then like a magnet underneath that marble, and the magnet is our thoughts about value and about things. So if we think like gas is valuable, like we're putting a lot of thoughts into gas, and it'll change the price of gas depending on how we are thinking about gas. Does that make sense? Because yes, it is a resource that we need, but we've decided to think of it that way because maybe we're like, oh, you don't need gas. Like that's not important. You can use this other thing to power things up. It is our thoughts that puts money in different places, and that is how the economy works. So I asked the economy, I was like, okay, cool. I get it. Thank you for the background. But what is happening right now? Like, why do I feel personally, I don't know if everybody listening, but I'm like, why do I feel like I'm hearing about it so much? And the economy said, well, because money right now is currently moving in a really big way and people are desperate to catch it. So it almost looks like money is like being spread into different places. There are certain things that are becoming more valuable and less valuable. And yes, we can say that the president of the free world of the US is causing some of that because, he is like he's like a microphone, right, of like a thought pattern. Like there is influence in that position. So therefore it's going to influence thought patterns. So to explain this, I'm going to share the story. I was in Disney World last week, I guess, with my niece and my nephew and my family. And my niece is the oldest of the little cousins at that point. Oliver wasn't with us. So, Bea, who is 8, is the oldest. And then we had 2 little younger cousins. So my little Ethan and then her little brother. And we're walking into this ride for Star Wars. And it did seem a little creepy. It was a little bit of a scary ride, but obviously we're there, she's old enough to know that like it's not real, but it was a little creepy for her. she has influence over her little cousins. So she's walking, over her little brother and her little cousin. She's walking into the ride and she starts to freak out for no reason, right? Like there was nothing, but she's so sensitive that she probably felt like, oh, this is like a scary ride. So she starts feeling this scary feeling in her body and starts, manifesting it and showing it, complaining and just moving her body in a certain way, to the point that she freaked out her younger brother, who obviously your big sister has so much influence over you, and he starts to cry. And there's nothing that's really causing it. Like there was nothing scary. It was just this feeling she was getting as she was walking through the line to get into the ride. So he runs out of the ride. She runs out of the ride, and Ethan's like, whatever, like I'm still going on this ride. And maybe that's because maybe his cousin doesn't have that much influence over him, right? But she definitely has influence over her little brother. So the two of them run out of the ride. And, Ethan, myself, and Benny keep going on the line, but my brother, leaves with the other ones. And that's really that's the best way I can explain this kind of influence that then causes us to feel and think a certain way and then take action from there. So Bea was feeling something. She was, getting a sensitivity from what was happening there. But then her little brother, who didn't even know what was happening, was like, oh my gosh, she's nervous. I'm now nervous, and now I'm going to act nervous by leaving the ride. And that is really what we're seeing happening right now. So there are none of it's true, right? At the end of the day, the ride was scary, but it was not going to put anybody in danger. It was very safe. It's Disney World at the end of the day. But it had a ton of emotion because that was like the point of the ride. But nobody was going to get hurt, if that makes sense. But the kids were acting in a way that it was unsafe and that they were going to get hurt. But that's normal for their age, of course. But it's not like what's really going to happen. So that is what's happening in many ways right now, where we are influenced by these feelings and then we act according to that. But the truth is, money is moving around more than ever right now. And that is what's kind of scaring people the most, because people want to capture that money. And I don't think it's like us, like on the individual level. It really seems like it's the businesses and even countries want to capture where money is about to move, and nobody's really sure where money is about to move, and that's what's causing a little bit of a feeling of the unknown, which I'm going to talk about where money's going to move in just a little bit. So I did ask in this message, I was like, okay, well then how do we catch it? And they were like, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but really quickly, how we catch it is there's going to be certain industries that are going to catch it more than ever. And that's kind of the hysteria right now, because we don't know who those teams, will be. But one of the ones that was really standing out to me was manufacturing, like anything that was physical. And I know that we might think like, oh, AI is going to kind of attract a lot of it, but AI is for the gambler. Like, it's going to attract some money, but right now it's attracting gambling money, which is different than that kind of money that is very safe and like that is like almost tangible. So a lot of what you see moving to AI is it's like fake money. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like not really real. It's probably because it's promises. It's when the company is like not fully physical or formed yet, but they're like, oh, this company's worth $1 billion, but it's like just like kind of made up money. That's the situation in AI. So it's not, what's really going to capture money is manufacturing. Things that are physical is what I was getting. And especially manufacturing that is ethical. This is a big one. So there's going to be these like manufacturing processes that it's just like having this huge rebirth, but it's going to be based on being ethical and sustainable. So it means like, people getting good wages and it being safe. And it is crazy how this industry has been so, it's like the kid that's been behaving bad in class and like nobody tells him he's behaving bad. And we're going to see the rebirth. We're going to see like the restoration of integrity in manufacturing. Like that's coming now. So that's going to attract a lot of money. And then also I was like, what's the energy that maybe people can use to like to attract money, and I was getting that there's certain energies. There is this creative and innovative experience. Remember the word creative and innovative because I'm going to talk about it in a second. But this is an energy that's going to attract people. So, and it almost like fun. It felt very, I keep wanting to use concerts and entertainment because that's really what's going to attract people. It reminds me of like when the circus came out and people like started to go to the circus. I really, really feel like that's the vibe. That's the energy. It's something that we're like bored of the entertainment that we have. And we're looking for like new innovative experiences, and people that are creative are going to be rewarded. Message number 3. So I asked, what is the stock market? And the economy said, I am not the US stock market, obviously, but the US stock market is the emotional gut of the US. And unfortunately, because the US gut kind of, it just has like an ego, you know, it projects into the rest of the world and it's like, this is how we should be thinking, or this is what we should be doing. So when that gut feels confident and kind of overzealous, it inflates. And when it feels a little scared or a little unknown, it drops. And that at the end of the day is what the US economy is. And I was like, well, should we be scared when it does that? And it's like, no, it's just like a human that we have some scary days. We have some days that we think we're like hot shit. And then we have days that, you know, we're pretty chilling. So the way to work with the US market, if you yourself have stocks there or you're investing in the US market, then, or the US stock market, excuse me, then it's really just about being the chill guy. Like I'm like, just be my dad. My dad is like the most chill, just like doesn't have a crazy up, doesn't have a crazy low, like just kind of chill. And that's the way to work with it. But to know that the US stock market is emotional. It has its ups and downs. And it truly is just like, it's all gut. It's all like solar plexus, kind of yellow vibes. And it does what it does do. It's kind of like a Leo in a sense. So it really projects to the rest of the world. And that's why people watch it. Message number 4. I decided to ask, okay, well, where is the economy going? Like, what do you have to give us? And it said the economy is looking for its next quarterback. So it's looking for like a star quarterback. It's kind of casting right now. Like think about it's like looking for the star of this new movie and it's casting for that position. So this is why it feels unsettling, because there is talks of like the different people that they're casting, but at the same time, we don't know who's like actually going to get the spot. So what they mean by this is there's going to be some sort of market, some sort of industry that is going to carry over the economy into the future because it needs like a new star. So maybe for a while the star, let's say, was the tech industry, like the boom of, you know, the apps and like all that kind of stuff that is ending. And now there needs to be a new star, and they really do not know what that star is. And the reason it feels, again, a little unsettling to us is because we are almost like children sitting at the table with our parents and hearing our parents discuss this casting, but we don't really truly understand it. So we're sitting there and we can just feel like mom and dad's emotions according to like kind of how they're feeling about who's being casted. So it feels very unsettling because we don't, it's like almost like we don't have the power, like as like the, you know, the normal people to know or even to decide what this is going to be. But the most important thing for us to know is that it is going to be something. We are going to crown a new king when it comes to industry. And there's a lot of industries that are trying to be in that position. You know, there really is. Like, I think if you look at space, you know, and, you know, space is looking to be it, energy is looking to be it, AI is looking to be it, manufacturing, there's all these different industries are like, please, like, let it be me. And they're really trying to like show their muscles. And we see a lot of PR. We see like people that are in charge of lobbying and like spreading the good news about this industry. We see them speaking the good news. And the truth is, sometimes even like small creators online don't even know that they're like lobbying for these industries that are trying to find that position. So they're really trying to crown these positions. People are trying to find out what that position, you know, what that industry is going to be, and they want to move to that industry. So that's why we're like little ants right now that like almost like somebody stepped on our ant pile and it's like, we're going to find a good settling home. It was necessary. Nobody nobody stepped on our ant pile. I should restate that. The environment changed our ant pile. So it's not like some big evil person stepped on us. It's really just like a hurricane came or a tornado came and it moved our ant pile, and it's a very natural process, right? Like when nature does that, it is natural. But now we need to go and establish like these new steady homes, and that's why we're feeling a little unsettled. If I had to make a prediction on who that quarterback is going to be, that star, I would definitely say it's something in the earth. It's like some sort of mineral or something in the earth that's going to come from the earth. It is not necessarily like, you know how gasoline is obviously from the earth, and it's a kind of a finished product. Like you can use it and put it into something right away to power. This doesn't feel like this. This feels like these are ingredients to something that then we need to create the pie. So for example, let's say the pie is free energy. Amazing. Like, wouldn't that like change the world? But there's ingredients in the earth that then we need to find and then create something amazing out of it. Does that make sense? So my sense it's going to come from there. My sense is this is already happening. People already know this, but it's like, is this going to move fast enough to become the quarterback? Because there's a lot of industries that can be the quarterback, but the question is like, who's going to move the quickest? And I would say it's in the earth. And I know that freaks all of us out because we don't want to be taking from Mother Earth, but Mother Earth, like she showed up in here, you guys have done episodes on her before, and she's like, ha ha ha, like I have treasure, like you don't even know it. And it makes me feel like we're sitting on something. I have goosebumps that like we don't even know like the power of what it does. It was making me think of, have you ever heard those, like, I don't know, do you ever go down the rabbit hole of like watching a Gaia documentary and they talk about like aliens coming to our planet to take minerals? It's kind of that vibe. It's like we do have something that we don't even know we have. It makes me feel like when you go into a vintage shop or you're going into like a secondhand shop and like there's this Gucci purse there, but nobody in the town knows what Gucci is, so they don't even know that they're sitting on this like super valuable item. You walk in, you scoop it up for $20, when it's actually worth 2,000, let's say. I have that feeling that is what is happening here. Mother Earth says that it's something that replenishes itself, and there's a lot of it. And again, that's going to kind of link up to manufacturing or like processing. And what's going to be very important is that manufacturing and processing has to be done with integrity. And that's going to kind of be this process. But it is part of our evolution as a species, is to discover these ingredients that we have and to do something with it. I don't know what we're going to do with it. Message number 5. I asked, should we be worried if we are running a business, if we own a business, or if like maybe we're working for a business, which is, pretty much all of us. And what the economy was saying was that the only reason you should be worried is if your business or the business you're working for is not innovating. So business that we see kind of struggling right now is because they failed to innovate before COVID. COVID did a really funny thing where it, for some companies, kind of like either pumped it up and like gave it this like false sense of like you're doing great, or it also deteriorated some as well. And because that deterioration caused a lot of fear in business owners, they decided to do like what works, or they decided to just kind of like find safe grounds, which is obviously like what a lot of people needed, whether you're a restaurant or maybe you did retail or something like that. You were just trying to find safe ground. But now it's not time to like care about safe ground anymore. And some of us are too late in the innovation in a sense. Like we should have innovated 2 years ago. We should have innovated in 2022, early 2023. So that is why we're feeling fearful and kind of struggling a little bit. And that is an intuitive message that we should listen to. It's not necessarily like, oh my God, your business is not going to last. It's really just being like, okay, I cannot value security and safety anymore like the way that I did 5 years ago. I have to value innovation and creativity. I have full body goosebumps. So and part of the reason like some companies haven't been able to do this is because they're too fat and they can't move as quick as possible. And I don't you can be a fat business by saying like I have 5,000 employees, but you can also be a fat business by having 10 employees when you should only have 3 employees. So I think being fat is, like up for debate. It's not necessarily that you have 10 employees so you're not fat. I don't think that. It's really about like, and you can have 10,000 employees and not be fat at all, right? So it's like really like what is truly needed for your company to run. So the first step might be, and if you haven't already done this already, is really like looking at like, do we need all these positions? And I know that's hard because some of us are employees. And if you are an employee, like how can I be very valuable and move into that innovative, like creative kind of space, right? And then really making decisions based on, it really felt like a download, like almost like what is the inspiration that's coming through? Like what, not the smart, logical, and strategic decision, which as business owners, that's what we're used to doing. And during COVID, especially when we were trying to find safety, that's what we were doing. But now it's really about using those upper chakras, not using the brain, like so the super brain, right? Like it's like the consciousness, like the downloads, the third eye to look into the future, but not from a strategic place, but more like, yeah, where do I feel like things are going? Like, how can I be brave and innovative? It makes me feel like you can't make one step forward. You have to make 10 steps forward. It's like you can't just doing a little bit. You have to jump in a big way. And that is really, you're going to love this new economy and this new earth. We're going to see some sort of like golden age really enjoying it, I would say. So like almost 2 years from now, maybe a little less. But this is like a very crucial time. Like, are you innovating? Are you being creative? Are you choosing your creativity and your innovation above security and safety? And above like, kind of like people pleasing emotions. Like, it's like, this is the time for the brave, like almost a little bit, not reckless, that's not the word, but, yeah, just kind of very fearless. Like you're a knight like you've got some armor on and you're like going straight for that army, like on your horse, like just going for it. Message number 6. So I asked the economy, I'm like, well, what about the cost of living? And the economy was like, that is not my fault. The economy was like, I have nothing to do with the cost of living, which I thought was interesting. The economy was saying the cost of living actually comes from our big businesses lacking innovation and being inefficient. So the economy was saying that the cost of living is coming from a ton of inefficiency in a lot of different markets and a lot of different industries. It's kind of like we got used to spending money this way because it was okay at that time. But as the world changes, we didn't catch up to how to become lean or how to innovate and all that. It kind of reminds me of, so my father's a physician. I've spoken about this a ton. And I remember when I was young, the pharmaceutical companies would just give him everything. It's like if they, I don't know, things that are definitely illegal these days, but I'm like thinking like, yeah, they would like pay for your family to go to dinner, or they would send you all these things, like just a reckless use of like pharmaceutical money. And then as the industry started to change, both for doctors and for these pharmaceutical companies, like they just really pulled back, right? Like the times have changed and like that doesn't exist anymore. And it seems like some of that is happening in other industries. It's like almost like we haven't adapted to being more efficient. And this is almost like even morally is kind of what I'm getting, that like, I think you can say greed, that like some people are like, well, I'm used to making this much money. So like we have to continue to run this business so that it pays me this much. But it's like everybody has to get used to different profit margins almost and being more efficient. And of course, like just learning to innovate. So, but unfortunately, like we are the ones that suffer, because we are like the consumers and we're the people that are just like trying to live like our simple lives in our houses and all that kind of stuff. And that is basically like those prices are then given to us. So this was kind of reminding me of the house market for some reason, like the housing market was coming through on this one. I don't know if the housing market is like an indicator. I guess, well, it's the cost of living at the end of the day. But it was almost like even some of us are holding out to buy homes. Like we're seeing people holding out to buy homes in like a really big way. Like we haven't seen this in so long. And that is a good choice, like to hold out in that way, because it's almost like the business of housing like has to figure itself out, and it's almost like a game of poker, like who's going to take the extra cost. And there's a lot of like poker going on in some of these industries, and like housing is one of the big ones that, it's like people are like, like, is it really worth it? Am I going to pay that? And, like, is that my responsibility? Like, is it really like my responsibility to give you this money? Like, maybe you should be making less money, things like that. So we're seeing that in these markets, and that's really the cost of living. It does look like it's going to, like, it feels like inflation is over, but there is this like catching up and this kind of like leveling out that's going to take some time. And it's a whole cultural shift, which is interesting. It's like in many ways the people that are going to save us is like Gen Z, because their culture is different than like the millennial or the baby boomer. The culture between a baby boomer and a Gen Z is like tremendous, and which is probably interesting because like the baby boomer grandparent, the baby boomer grandparent is like looking at the Gen Z child and probably like worried and stuff, but the Gen Z child doesn't feel worried. They just see the world very differently because they're of a different culture, if that makes sense. So it's a cultural shift. And it is going to level out, but when we see Gen Z like really, really become adults is kind of when we're going to see like how all that leveled out. And then finally, message number 7, my question was, okay, give me one thing that like we're not expecting, like, kind of surprise me, give me some fun. And the economy said, one thing that we're probably not expecting is how many people are going to switch careers. And he said specifically men. I have goosebumps again. And I see this as a positive thing, guys. I know this is scary because we have men in our lives, or we are men, some of us, or we birth little men. But they were saying like men are going to have like the biggest shift career-wise because there's something happening to like the typical men careers. Because of course, like, I used to work in publicity, and that's not a typical like man career. We would call it like a pink collar industry, but there was tons of men, working with me. But this is like, maybe like your most typical masculine energy person. So it could also be a female, but that has like a lot of masculine energy. There's going to be this like split. There's going to be either the very techie, kind of almost software engineer programming people, and then there's going to be the very hands-on, using my hands, like being physical, if that's the word. I don't think it's not labor. I'm not thinking like you're a slave. It just feels like it's like a trade, like something that you can do physically. And I'm not sure it's like completely with your hands, but it's with physical items. We're going to see this big split. And I'm thinking is because we're going to see a boom in manufacturing. So there's going to be people that learn how to do that. They're going to like learn that trade. And then there's going to be people that like make the systems and the innovation and the technology to make those things efficient. And it's just going to be a really big split. And then I would say probably what's happening in the middle of those jobs between that spectrum is probably where technology starts to take over. And I think this is like the fear that, a lot of us have is like, oh, well, what is AI going to do to our jobs? And I think it's going to eat like that middle place. And that's why this is going to be interesting. We're not going to see this right away. This is going to take time. We'll probably see this more in our children. But what's funny? I was thinking about a good friend of mine's son who is in his 20s. And he studied finance, and super smart guy, and like had a great finance job. And he lives in Miami, so I like lost track of them. And then a few years ago, Benny catches up with them again and finds out that the son left finance and became a lineman. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's like the people that do like the electricity, like up in those bucket trucks. Very dangerous work. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was telling Benny, I was like, that's crazy. Like, I can't believe he switched from finance to that. Like, you don't even need to go to college for that, right? And I'm like, sure, he studied a bunch. And he's like, Nick, and then Benny was like, Nikki, do you know how much money those people make? And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, and then Benny was like, and Nikki, like, a lot of guys hate sitting at a desk all day. And I was like, no, I get it. And I was just thinking when I got this message, I was like, oh, I wonder if this kid that I'm talking to you about, if maybe he's like very intuitive, like maybe he saw this coming, like, and maybe he jumped on it early. I was like, oh, I want to read his chart. Like, I wonder if he has a ton of intuition because that was like such an intuitive move, and he's happier and all that. Even though he's a smart guy. So this is not about like taking those jobs because you can't do anything else. It's just like, it's going to excite some people the same way that probably like becoming a software engineer excites some people as well. So we're going to see this like split. It's going to be very interesting. So then I was like, well, what about the women? And guys, do not hate me for this, and please don't start throwing like fireballs at me, but I was getting that we are going to see one of the biggest movements of the stay-at-home mom that we've ever seen before. I don't think this is my generation. I think this is probably my daughter's generation, maybe the boys' generation, maybe a very young millennial. I'm an elder millennial. I'm 42. But we're going to see this big movement to stay-at-home moms. I don't know if that means we completely replace like that these moms are not working at all, like working outside of the house, because obviously everybody knows that the stay-at-home mom job is like the hardest job. But what's happening is that the stay-at-home mom, the mother, who is like the queen of these families that are about to come forward or are already coming forward, is realizing that the family has also been run inefficiently. So, you know how we were talking about like these businesses are being run inefficiently. So that's why there's this like fat, and that's why cost of living is crazy. The mom is realizing that as well, and she's realizing that in her own family. I think we already see it, right? Like the mom is like, why am I spending all this money for this private school that like doesn't even give me everything that I want for my kid? I'm going to stay home and I'm going to homeschool them, even though it's a very hard job. Like I don't necessarily seeing it being something that is easy or even something that is I'm passionate about. It's more that as the queen of this ship, I'm going to have to make some sacrifices and some decisions. So we're going to see that in a very big way. So yeah, don't call me an anti-feminist. Like I am just the messenger here. God knows I do both, and it's very difficult. But like God bless these women because they are going to change the way the household is run. And it's going to be really cool to see. All right, friends, those are the messages from the economy. I hope that it was expansive. I hope that it gives you peace. I hope it gives you fire and reminds you that anything is possible for you. Truly, do not let any of these other messages like, the worst, like really hear what is true for you and move forward on where you know you are being called to. Be brave and listen to your heart. I cannot wait to see you in the next episode.